You ever feel like a moment's too perfect and that's exactly what makes it feel wrong? That was how it started. Thursday night. I was standing at the kitchen sink rinsing off the dinner plates when Tina walked in humming some tune I didn't recognize. It wasn't the humming that got me though, it was the way she floated through the house. Like everything was already handled. Like there was nothing worth talking about. She only gets like that when she's covering something. She poured herself a glass of water, leaned against the counter, and said, almost too casually, so tomorrow I'm heading to Vancouver. I turned off the faucet. Vancouver? Yeah, she said, swirling the glass like it was wine. Last-minute strategy session with the brand team. We rented a co-working loft. It's an overnight thing. I stared at her, the way her eyes didn't quite meet mine. You didn't mention this before. It came together super fast, she said. You know how they are, urgent creative alignment, blah blah. We'll probably work through most of the night. She tossed it out there like it was just another update in her calendar. Like it didn't warrant follow-up. But my gut twisted. For a second I just stood there, drying the same plate over and over again with the towel. It was already odd how she never told me about this trip until the night before. But what stuck with me more was how smooth she sounded. Practiced. Like she'd gone over the lines in her head on the drive home. Later that night, she was packing. I leaned in the bedroom doorway, arms crossed, watching her fold sweaters into her duffel. She had the same playlist going as she always did when she wanted to pretend everything was okay, soft indie pop with a vague sense of optimism. It was like she thought background music could make things seem less suspicious. Then I saw it. She pulled a small black bag from her closet, the kind of boutique bag with gold trim you only see in high-end lingerie stores. Her hands moved fast, like she didn't want to dwell on what she was doing. She pulled out Berg * and Y-lace underwear, intricate, expensive. Then a silk slip, wine-colored, with thin straps and a low back. I didn't say anything. I don't know why. Maybe because part of me was hoping I'd misread the whole thing. Maybe because I knew if I said something, everything would come to the surface and I wasn't ready for that. She folded them delicately and slipped them into a separate zippered pouch. Not her usual packing routine. She didn't just toss them in with her clothes like she normally would. No, this was deliberate. Purposeful. Then she zipped up the suitcase and threw in a flannel hoodie on top like it would cover the whole thing. I turned and walked back to the kitchen before she noticed me staring. After she went to bed, I sat on the couch, flipping channels without watching. My mind was spinning. Who else was going? What co-working space? What client? She hadn't said any names, no agenda, no, I'll be back by this time. Just vague details and a confident smile. She'd done this before, these out-of-nowhere business trips. The first time I didn't think much of it. Everyone's job gets hectic. But then it became a pattern. Last-minute bookings, overnight stays, vague explanations. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the way she was acting tonight, so collected, so polished, it didn't sit right. That night, I barely slept. I lay there in bed staring at the ceiling, Tina breathing softly beside me like everything was normal. Around 5:30 a.m. her alarm went off. She moved around the room quickly, already dressed in dark jeans and a fitted blazer before I even opened my eyes. She kissed me on the forehead quick like she was checking off a box and said, "See you tomorrow night, okay? Text me when you get there," I mumbled. "Of course," she said, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "Love you." She left before I even had time to sit up. When I finally pulled myself out of bed around 8, the house already felt different. Not just empty, quiet in a way that felt staged, like it had been intentionally left that way. Around noon, I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. Maybe she was in a meeting. Maybe she was on the road. But she always answers eventually, even just to shoot back a quick, "Hey, can't talk now." This time? Nothing. I tried again at 2. Still nothing. I even checked Find My Friends out of pure impulse, but her location was turned off. That was new. At 4, I got the text. "Endless meetings, all good, heart." That heart? It looked fake. Like punctuation. Like she was trying to plug a hole in a sinking boat with a piece of gum. I stared at that text for a long time. She was in a meeting all day, sure. But she couldn't send one message earlier? Just one? I looked over at the suitcase she hadn't taken. It was her regular carry-on, the one she uses for actual work trips. Instead, she took her weekender, the smaller, sleeker one she only packs when she wants to travel light and stylish. And I couldn't help but remember how calm she was packing. Too calm. The kind of calm you get when you're not improvising, when you already know exactly what's going to happen. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee I didn't need. My hands were shaking and I told myself it was just the caffeine. But I knew it wasn't. The pieces had started connecting before this trip even came up. I'd noticed the perfume a few weeks ago, sharp and citrusy, nothing like the floral one she always used. She said it was a free sample, but it lingered too long. It wasn't for me. I knew that now. Her texts had changed too. Shorter. More emojis. Less conversation, more filler. And then there were the calls she took outside. The ones she said were from the new brand consultant. She always stepped onto the patio or went into the garage. Like suddenly our open-floor living room didn't have enough privacy. I looked at Bruno, our dog, lying by the back door. He used to jump up when Tina came home, full on tail-wagging joy. Lately, he just looked at her and laid his head back down. Dogs know. I leaned against the counter and tried to remember the last time Tina and I had a real conversation, something deeper than groceries or scheduling. I couldn't think of one. We used to talk about everything, late-night dreams, dumb hypotheticals, vacations we never took. Now it was just calendar updates and awkward silences. I told myself I needed to trust her. That it was all in my head. But I knew. I already knew. I just didn't know how bad it was going to get. After Tina left, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful, just eerie. Bruno curled up beside the sliding door, his head on his paws, ears twitching at every distant noise like he was waiting for something. Or someone. I spent the first few hours trying to distract myself, emptied the dishwasher, took out the trash, even tried to fix the hinge on the bathroom cabinet I'd been ignoring for weeks. But no matter what I did, my mind kept circling back to her. Where she was. Who she was with. What was really happening while I stood here tightening screws in a house that suddenly didn't feel like home. I couldn't explain why, but that afternoon I started reviewing the past few weeks like a detective at a whiteboard. Noticing things I hadn't allowed myself to notice before. Red flags that used to feel like yellow ones. Patterns. Gaps. It started with her phone. Always silent. Always face down. At first I thought it was out of habit, some people just do that. But Tina used to leave its screen up, buzzing constantly from group chats, family messages, work pings. Now it was either in her pocket or tucked under a throw pillow. And when it lit up, she always glanced at it too quickly, then set it aside like she was hiding the reaction more than the message. I remembered one night 2 weeks ago, I walked in on her using her laptop at the dining table. She had Spotify open, supposedly working on a mood board for a pitch. But as I walked closer, she scrambled, literally scrambled, to switch tabs. The browser history cleared out. The screen brightness dimmed. When I asked what she was working on, she got flustered and muttered something about a mood alignment deck. That phrase stuck with me because it sounded like she made it up on the spot. Then the tablet. Our family iPad. We mostly used it for recipes and dumb games. But one day, I picked it up to check the weather and saw it required a new password. One I didn't know. When I asked her about it, she didn't even look up. Just said, oh, it's work stuff now. NDA heavy. Can't risk leaks. Leaks? We're not running national security. Then there were the new scents. New clothes. Tina had always dressed well, sure, but casually. Jeans and knits, sneakers, hoodies. Comfort. Lately, she'd started buying dresses with plunging backs, heels that clicked too confidently against the pavement. I complimented her once, thinking maybe she was just stepping into a new season of herself, something to do with age or work ambition. She smiled and said, I'm just refreshing my style. Like she'd read it off a Pinterest board. But perfume? That was different. Tina used to wear this warm vanilla and lavender blend, soft, familiar. Now it was something spicier, citrusy, sharper. I smelled it once on the collar of a coat hanging by the door, and it stuck with me for hours afterward. She said it was a tester she got at the mall. But who tries a tester on their neck? And even Bruno acted differently. It's not like a dog can give you verbal clues, but he used to run straight to her when she walked in, tail wagging, body wagging. Pure joy. Lately, he'd glance up, then curl back into his bed. He even growled once when she tried to grab his collar. Tina laughed and said he was being moody. But Bruno was never moody. He was steady more than either of us could say for ourselves at that point. There were other things too. Subtler. She stopped watching our shows together. I'd suggest one of our GoTOS and she'd say she was too tired or already saw it at the office with the girls. I didn't even know she was close with any girls at work. And the business trips. God, the trips. They started 3 months ago, right after she got promoted. First, it was a brand strategy meetup in LA. I remember helping her zip the suitcase and joking about her needing a red carpet dress just in case. She laughed, but not in the way she used to, not playfully. More like she was trying to control how loud it came out. Then Portland. Then some beach town I'd never heard of in Oregon, apparently for a remote creative reset. No flight details, no hotel confirmations. She'd show me her itinerary in chunks, screensh asterisk TS mostly. Never forwarded emails, never full names. I should have asked more. I should have dug deeper. But every time I tried, she had an answer ready. Convincing, confident. Like she had already anticipated the questions before I asked. And I always gave her the benefit of the doubt. I told myself I was being paranoid. That marriage meant trusting your partner to exist without you sometimes. That people change, evolve, update their routines. But deep down, something didn't sit right. It wasn't just that Tina was different. It was that she was becoming a version of herself that I didn't recognize and didn't have access to. I remember one night she left for a late creative check-in and I checked her closet afterward. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe confirmation. Maybe nothing. But I noticed the same Berg asterisk and Y-lace underwear was missing, the set she bought weeks ago. The one she tucked into her overnight bag for Vancouver. She hadn't worn it at home. Not for me. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at our framed photo on the nightstand, her in a sundress, me in cargo shorts, both of us squinting into the sun in San Diego. That was 5 years ago. A different decade, almost a different couple. We looked carefree, real. Now, I felt like I was living with a stranger who happened to know my favorite cereal and Spotify playlists. The worst part wasn't even the suspicion. It was the slow realization that she was slipping away and that I had been watching it happen, one unexplained meeting at a time. That night, I opened her laptop after she went to bed. I knew it was wrong. I felt like a teenager breaking into their sibling's room. But I couldn't help it. The browser history had been wiped clean. Again. Recent files, empty. Even the recycle bin had been emptied. It was too clean. No one uses a computer like that. Not unless they're hiding something or hiding someone. At that point, I wasn't looking for proof. I didn't need it. I just needed to know how long she'd been gone in her head before she started leaving physically. I stood in the hallway for a while, staring at the guest room door. We rarely used it. It always smelled a little dusty, like unopened books. I thought about how many nights I had spent sleeping beside her body but not her mind. How many evenings I'd made her tea and rubbed her shoulders while she stared off at something that clearly wasn't work. A text buzzed on the kitchen counter. Her phone. She was asleep. I glanced at the screen. Just a name. Craig. No preview. No emoji. Just the name. I didn't unlock the phone. I couldn't. Maybe I didn't want to cross that line. Or maybe I already had. I stood there, in the faint blue light of the fridge, wondering what kind of marriage ends with a slow fade instead of a loud explosion. The answer, I guess, was mine. By the time evening hit and I still hadn't heard from her, I knew I was done waiting. There was no good reason for it anymore. No meeting lasts 12 straight hours without a break. No professional offsite in Vancouver suddenly becomes a no-phone zone. I'd been giving her the benefit of the doubt for weeks, months, really, but now the doubt had stacked so high it blocked out any room for belief. So I went to the family tablet. We hardly used it anymore, just to stream music sometimes, check recipes. But I remembered something I'd done almost a year ago, back when Tina was traveling a lot for work and I had a minor panic attack about emergency safety. I'd set up a location-sharing app, basic, nothing fancy, just something to ease my mind. She agreed to it. Said it was practical. She never turned it off. She probably forgot it was even linked. When I opened the app, my hands were shaking, not with fear, but with anticipation. I already knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what the final form of it would look like. The dot appeared after a few seconds. Not in Vancouver. Not even close. Seattle. Downtown. The location, a boutique hotel. The kind with soft lighting in the lobby, modern art in the elevators, and room rates that make you feel like you're paying for silence. I stared at it for a full minute before it really registered. Then I got in the car. I didn't pack anything. Didn't think it through. Just grabbed my keys, put Bruno in his crate, and started driving. The miles rolled under the tires while my mind replayed everything, every deflection, every half-answer, every strange perfume and quick-tab close. By the time I got to the hotel, it was dusk. The sky over Seattle had turned that deep gray blue that always feels like something's about to happen. The air was cool, sharp with sea breeze and car exhaust. I parked a block away and walked the rest of the distance, my jacket zipped up tight against the wind, though I barely felt it. I didn't know what I was going to do, if I'd walk in, if I'd confront her, if I'd just watch. And then I saw her. She stepped out of the hotel lobby like a scene out of a movie. Not rushed. Not nervous. Just glowing. Confident. Her hair was curled, her heels clicking softly against the stone steps. She wore the dress I'd given her 2 anniversaries ago, a midnight blue slit gown she'd called too fancy to wear more than once. She hadn't worn it for me since the night I gave it to her. I remember that night like a photograph, her spinning in front of the mirror, laughing. I never thought I'd see that dress again. And certainly not like this. A man stood waiting on the curb. He was tall, dressed in a light gray coat, the kind that didn't come from a department store. When he saw her, he smiled like he'd been waiting for her all his life. Then he kissed her. Not a peck. Not a friend's hug. Not a colleague's thank you. He took her face in his hands, tilted her chin, and kissed her like it was familiar, like it was theirs. And Tina didn't pull away. She leaned into it. That was the moment. All the scattered suspicions and gut feelings clicked together like glass shards forming a mirror. I didn't need context. I didn't need to hear her voice to explain it away. The truth had unfolded in front of me without a single word. I didn't step forward. I didn't yell. I didn't demand an answer. I just pulled out my phone and took a photo. Click. A clean, quiet snap of betrayal in its rawest form. They went back inside, her hand resting on his arm. As if it belonged there. As if she hadn't just destroyed a decade of life with me in the space of one elevator ding. I walked back to my car and sat behind the wheel, staring through the windshield at nothing. The hotel's glowing sign flickered in my peripheral vision like it was mocking me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there frozen in a kind of calm that comes when the war inside you stops being hypothetical. Because now it was real. The truth wasn't a feeling anymore. It wasn't a suspicion or a late-night guess or a badly timed perfume trail. It was a photograph. It was a location pin. It was a woman in my gift and a man I didn't recognize kissing in front of a building I had never been to but somehow felt like I'd seen in a nightmare. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was architectural. It had layers, structure, planning. This wasn't a slip-up. It wasn't a mistake after too much wine at a conference. This was something else. Calculated. Practiced. Ongoing. I checked the time. It was 7:42 p.m. She hadn't texted since 4:03. I pulled up our messages. Scrolled. Scanned. Nothing specific. No names. No plans. Just placeholders like running behind and super busy today and Wi-Fi's awful. I took a photo of the hotel with the sign in the frame. Then I took one of the text thread. Then I took a picture of the tracking map on the tablet. Evidence. I wasn't sure what I was collecting it for yet, but something in me knew this wasn't just personal anymore. This was the part of the story where the main character finally realizes he's not crazy. That all the little gut punches and mental rewinds weren't paranoia, they were warnings. And I had ignored them. All of them. I thought about calling her. But what would I say? I saw you. That's a sentence you can't walk back. So I didn't. I just drove. Took the long way back to the freeway, circling the block once, watching for their silhouettes in the room windows, half hoping I wouldn't see them again, but also unable to look away. By the time I got home, it was late. Bruno wagged his tail once when I walked in, then laid his head back down. I poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink and sat in the living room in the dark, letting the silence fill the spaces where my questions used to be. It was no longer about asking why. It was about what came next. When I walked into the house that night, I felt like a stranger in my own life. The walls looked the same, the furniture hadn't moved, but everything felt wrong. Off. Like I had stumbled onto the set of a place that used to mean something. The air was stale, too still. I half expected Tina to text me right then. Say something like, "Long day, heading to bed," with a heart emoji. But she didn't. She stayed silent. And I stayed up. Couldn't sleep. Not after what I saw. I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the photos I'd taken like I was reading an obituary. My marriage, right there in a series of images. Dated, time-stamped, GPS tagged. My wife in a dress I bought, kissing a man I'd never met. And I realized something. Betrayal doesn't just live in bedrooms and hotel lobbies. Creeps into your paperwork, too. It shows up in places you never thought to look, because you trusted someone to protect them. I opened my laptop, intending to back up the photos in case I needed them for divorce proceedings. But while I was organizing folders, I noticed something else. A folder I didn't recognize, one I didn't create. Labeled, Consulting Docs Shared. I clicked. Invoices. PDFs. Bank statements. Business records. Most were dated in the past 3 months. Some listed Tina's name, some didn't. But the strangest part was this document marked Articles of Organization, Arlo Studio LLC. It had my name on it. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe something she had drafted and used a template for. But the more I read, the worse it got. The business was real, registered, official, filed with the Washington Secretary of State. The co-owners were listed as Tina Hart and Craig Miller. Craig. So now he had a last name. But what made my stomach twist was the section labeled Managing Members. There I was, Mark Hart, my full name, my personal email, even my driver's license number, digitally signed, logged, filed. I stared at the screen, rereading every line, trying to find a thread to pull that would make it all unravel into something innocent. But I couldn't. I hadn't signed anything. I never authorized this. I never even knew Arlo Studio existed. But somehow I was part of it. Legally. That's when I opened our shared bank account. We had both our names on it, mostly for bills, groceries, the occasional vacation. I hadn't checked it in detail in weeks, maybe months. Tina handled most of that. I clicked through the recent transactions. And that's when it all came pouring in. Small charges at first, $89 here, $240 there. Payments labeled as creative consulting, venue retainer, freelancer deposit, then flights, Airbnb rentals, co-working invoices from companies I'd never heard of, Uber rides in cities I wasn't in. None of it had anything to do with us, our life, our plans, our future. Then I saw the total. Roughly $13,800. Gone. Over 2 months. Bit by bit. Strategically bled from the account like someone siphoning gas from a tank while pretending to fill it. I felt dizzy. Like the floor had shifted beneath me. Like the air was thinner. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't an affair. This was fraud. I printed the founding document and double-checked the Secretary of State website. It matched. It was all filed under a business address in Seattle, a virtual office suite. The business listed its activity as creative branding and media consulting. They even had a website. I pulled it up, and there it was. Sleek black and white layout, abstract shapes, vague phrases about narrative-driven storytelling, photos of Tina, smiling, poised, wearing clothes I'd never seen, and Craig, standing beside her like they'd built something meaningful, like they weren't parasites feeding off the time and trust of someone who'd given them both. I clicked on the team section, co-founded by longtime collaborators Craig Miller and Tina Hart. Arlo Studio is dedicated to immersive brand experiences and design-forward strategy. There was no mention of me, no trace of my involvement except on the back end. The documents, the filings, the tax forms. That's when the anger really kicked in. Not the heartbreak kind, but the kind that burns slow and sharp. She hadn't just left our marriage emotionally or physically. She had used me, my name, my identity, my social security number. She hadn't just built a life outside our relationship. She used mine to fund it. I scrolled through the website again, noticed a section labeled Upcoming Workshops. One of them was in Portland, another in LA, and the most recent one, the day she left for Vancouver, Seattle. That's what the workshop address said. The exact block where I saw her disappear with him into that hotel. I sat back in the chair, exhaling slowly like it would steady me. But nothing could. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was theft. She used my name to open a company with the man she was cheating on me with. She pulled money from our account to fund their operation, their hotel rooms, their dinners, their late-night brainstorm sessions. Every single detail crafted with just enough precision to keep me from asking too many questions. I didn't sleep that night. I gathered documents, downloaded statements, printed every record I could find. I took *TS of the Arlo website. I filed copies of the LLC registration. I traced the charges back as far as I could. And when the folder was full of thick with evidence, dates, names, I labeled it in bold black Sharpie. Tina, evidence. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet. Not exactly. But I knew one thing. She wasn't going to lie her way out of this. Not anymore. Not with paperwork. Not with silence. Not with a heart emoji in a text. By the next morning, I wasn't tired anymore. Not really. Exhaustion had been replaced by something else: focus. A kind of cold, methodical clarity. I knew what I had to do. The sun was barely up when I sat down in the kitchen, surrounded by printed papers, manila folders, a stapler, and 2 highlighters. I went through everything I'd gathered the night before. I needed it to be clean, precise, organized. If she was going to walk into this house and pretend everything was normal, I was going to make sure reality hit her all at once, page by page. First, I laid out the financial records. Every withdrawal from our joint account that had no justification. Every subtle siphon masked as a business payment. I highlighted the dates and matched them to her business trips. Portland, LA, Seattle. She never told me where she was going exactly, just vague brand retreats and client workshops. But the bank knew. Then came the business registration, Arlo Studio LLC. I printed the articles of organization, circled my name in red ink, and attached a copy of the state filing records showing me as an official managing member. My name. My identity. My signature. I added **TS of the Arlo website, which I had captured before she could change anything just in case. Right there on the team page, it was her and Craig Miller smiling like proud parents over a company built on stolen pieces of my life. She never told me about Arlo. Never mentioned starting something new. And yet, legally, I was part of it. Then came the hotel photos. The ones I'd taken outside the Seattle boutique hotel. Tina in the midnight blue dress. The one I bought her for our anniversary. Kissing Craig like they were the main characters in their own private film. I printed them on glossy photo paper in full color. Labeled the timestamp. Made sure everything was documented down to the minute. It wasn't about revenge. It was about the truth. I slipped each set of documents into plastic sleeves and placed them in a sleek black leather folder. The kind of thing you might bring to a boardroom or a pitch meeting, clean, professional, undeniable. And then I waited. I didn't tell her I was working from home that day. I wanted her to come in like it was just another Friday evening. I wanted her to think she could waltz through the door and drop her keys into the ceramic bowl by the entryway like always. Because once she saw what was on the table, everything would shift. And that's exactly what happened. Around 6:40 p.m., I heard the engine of her car outside. The familiar sound of tires on gravel, the slow open of the front door, her soft footsteps across the hardwood. "Hey babe," she called out, casual, maybe a little tired sounding. "I'm back. Meetings ran long. Sorry, I didn't check in, much service was garbage." She set her bag down, took off her coat, and turned into the hallway. I didn't say a word. I just nodded toward the kitchen table. She blinked when she saw me sitting there. Hesitated. Her eyes followed the tilt of my head. That's when she saw the folder. She approached slowly, her expression unreadable at first. Maybe curious. Maybe nervous. "What's that?" she asked, her voice light, careful. I didn't answer. I just looked at her. Not angrily. Just blankly. Like someone waiting for a witness to step into the courtroom. She opened the folder. The first page was a printout of the bank withdrawals, each one highlighted, annotated, matched with calendar events on her phone. She stared at it for a second too long before flipping to the next. Receipts. Business filings. My forged signature. I watched her eyes move faster as she flipped. Then the photos. She stopped there. Her fingers gripped the edge of the plastic sleeve as she stared at the image of herself stepping out of the Seattle hotel. Craig's hand on her waist. Their kiss. The dress. She didn't move to the next page. She closed the folder. Set it down with both hands like it was made of glass. And walked into the bedroom. Didn't say a word. Didn't ask a question. Didn't offer an excuse. Just walked away. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. No denial. No gaslighting. No, it's not what it looks like. Just the sound of her shoes on hardwood, the door closing gently behind her, and the crushing weight of reality settling over everything. I sat there in the kitchen, staring at the black folder, half expecting her to come storming back to try and spin some version of the truth that could bend around the evidence. But she didn't. And I didn't follow her. Instead, I looked around the house we'd shared for 8 years. Every object suddenly looked like part of a set design. The ceramic vase by the window that she insisted we get from the market in Oregon. The framed quote in the hallway she used to say motivated her every morning. The scented candles she always kept burning, even in summer. Props. That's all they felt like now. Evidence of a life that had been curated, not lived. I got up, walked to the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter. My hands were steady now. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even particularly sad. Just aware. I heard the faint sound of her crying through the bedroom door. But I didn't go in. I didn't comfort her. I didn't say anything. Because what was there to say? She had the chance to explain before this. To be honest. To tell me where she was going, who she was with, what she was building behind my back. She chose silence. Now so did I. At some point, I walked into the guest room and grabbed a spare blanket. Laid it out on the couch. Bruno climbed up and curled next to me like he'd been waiting for this new arrangement. I scratched behind his ear. He let out a soft groan as if to say, finally. We both knew the house had changed. Even the dog had sensed it long before I admitted it to myself. That night, I fell asleep on the couch. Not comfortably, but with the kind of clarity that makes you feel like maybe, for the first time in a long time, you're actually seeing things as they are. No filters. No guesswork. No pretending. Just the truth. And the truth was sitting quietly in a black leather folder on the kitchen table waiting for her to open it again if she ever dared. I found her on Facebook, Craig's wife. Angela Miller. Her profile was mostly public, like she hadn't expected betrayal to be something she'd need to hide from. Family photos, a beach trip, 2 kids. I hesitated for almost an hour before messaging her. What do you even say to someone who's unknowingly living the same nightmare? I kept it simple. Hi, Angela. I think we should talk. It's about Craig and my wife. She responded in less than 5 minutes. I had a feeling, she wrote. We spoke that night. Turns out Craig had pulled the same disappearing acts, sudden work trips, new colognes, secretive behavior. She told me he hadn't worn his wedding ring in over a month. Angela cried halfway through the call. I didn't. Not because I was numb, but because I felt understood. We traded details, filled in blanks the other didn't even know were there. She'd already spoken to a lawyer. I told her I had a folder. She asked if I wanted to send it to her, and I did. Everything. For the first time since this all began, I didn't feel insane. Our stories overlapped like puzzle pieces. And when we hung up, she said, thank you. I thought I was going crazy. Now I know I'm not alone. Neither of us got closure, but we got each other's truth. That was enough.